In the Lab, a Texans podcast that takes a different look at things. Drew Dougherty and John Harris have their lab coats and goggles on, and the Bunsen burners burning. Here's Drew.
Hey there, let's get nerdy. This is Drew Dougherty. That's John Harris. This podcast, which you're listening to or watching on YouTube, is In the Lab. And the Texans coaching search is happening. It's in the, I don't know if it's still the infantile stage, like Nick Caserio, the general manager, said last week, but, you know, they're still doing their due diligence and interviewing people. We've heard about the official interviews, and we've also heard the stuff on the web about other stuff going on with maybe a second interview. But is there anything you want to add to it before we punt on the whole idea of talking about the coaching search and move on to what we're going to do, John, in just a moment?
You hit it, Drew. It's ongoing. And there's so many different things I'd like to say about it, but it's got to play out. I know people lost their ever-loving minds last week about Josh McCown and freaking out. And look, if Josh McCown ends up being head coach, okay, well, then the Texans brass saw something in him that make them believe he can be a really good head coach. So we'll go with it. But there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts here, a lot of decisions to be made. There might be guys that they want to interview that don't want to interview. And you're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear, well, you know, the Texans asked me to do it, but I didn't. I said no. You're not going to hear that. That doesn't happen. So, you know, all this about, well, why don't they ask this guy? Why don't they? Maybe they have. Maybe they haven't. Who knows? It's the stuff behind closed doors that we don't get a chance to hear or hear about, that fans out there, well, they should be hiring this guy. And I heard this the other day. I'm just going to leave this last one. Why aren't they interviewing the name candidates? Well, who are the name candidates for this team? Name candidates like who? Like Eric Bieniemy. They interviewed him last year. It's the same people doing the interviewing. So, you know, Eric Bieniemy, maybe they want to interview Bieniemy when it's over and do it again. Who knows? But people losing their mind about the name can't. You interview the people you think are right for your organization at that particular time. Boom, done, end of story. Drew, let's redraft. Let's go.
So we're not going to do any chit chat about the coaching search or any of that. We're going to go back in time. Something we've done quite a few times on this podcast over the last 4 or 5 years. We're going to redraft. Now, we've done the 2003 redraft where we still took Andre Johnson, but we picked different players than the Texans actually took. So this one, we're going back to one of the greatest drafts in Texans history because it netted one of the greatest Texans in franchise history, yes. J.J. Watt, 2011. So let's think back. It's the middle of the lockout when this is going on. The Texans are coming off a 6-10 season in which their defense, and specifically their pass defense, but the defense as a whole, was abysmal. The offense put up pinball numbers with Arian Foster having his breakout season in 2010. Yep. And Matt Schaub was slinging it around the yard to Andre Johnson, to Jacoby Jones, to Arian Foster. He had 600 some receiving yards as a running back. So the offense was okay. Defense needed help. And Rick Smith did a great job, and he hit a home run. He got J.J. Watt in the first round. He also had 2 second rounders, one of which involved a trade during the draft. He took Brooks Reed, the defensive end, who was really an outside linebacker, Brandon Harris, and then in the 4th, cornerback Rashad Carmichael. In the 5th, he had 2 of them. He took Shiloh Kao, a safety, and T.J. Yates, the quarterback, folk hero T.J. Yates. Yes. And Derek Newton in the 7th, the first of 2 7th rounders, and they had the very last pick in the entire draft, Mr. Irrelevant, which I still think is just disrespectful. And they took Rice's own Cheta Ozuwu. So we're going to redraft. And what we're going to do is we're not going to trade away and trade those picks. We're only going to have 1 second round pick because they dealt a pick to the Patriots on draft day so they can move up to get Brandon Harris. So, John, you ready?
Let's go. Let's go.
Right.
It's happening.
With the 11th overall pick in the first round, do you want to stay with J.J. Watt, or are you kind of itching to get a Ryan Kerrigan or a Cameron Jordan or Muhammad Wilkerson? No, of course you're not, John. We're sticking with J.J. Watt. That's the choice. It's easy. It's a slam dunk. We don't need to entertain anything. Maybe if somebody wanted to trade us their next 3 entire drafts, we'd consider it, but we're going to stay with JJ at number 1. Is that cool with you?
I'm totally fine. I think one of the things, Drew, to point out about this 2011 draft, the first 16 picks, of those 16, 12 ended up becoming not just Pro Bowlers, but multi-time Pro Bowlers.
Oh, yeah.
Cam Newton became MVP of the league. Von Miller was Super Bowl MVP. Marcel Darius, Mr. Big Stuff, was multiple-time Pro Bowler. AJ Green. I mean, you just have to say the names that people already know.
Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson, Julio Jones. The one I think was wasted kind of because of his own demons was Alden Smith.
And the Texans liked him.
Yeah, and for good reason. The guy was a monster, but he had some personal demons. What's interesting about those 16 picks is there were 3 quarterbacks taken after Cam Newton, and they were all absolute disasters as starting quarterbacks. Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder. The only non-quarterback position player that didn't make the Pro Bowl, I think, would have had he not gotten injured a little bit later into his career, and that's Nick Fairley from out of Auburn. And he went at pick number 13. Even after Fairley, Robert Quinn, who tore it up this year for the Bears, Mike Pouncey had a long career in the league at center. Ryan Kerrigan,
excellent player,
still playing.
Cameron Jordan, excellent player.
Cameron Jordan went at 24. Even Nate Solder did not go to Pro Bowls, was an excellent player at 17.
Mm-hmm.
Where you ran into a pit, so to speak. I don't say pit, but there were some really difficult picks. Well, maybe not. Now that I think about it, I never thought Prince Amukamara was a great player, but he stayed around the league for a while. Corey Liuget, he obviously came to the Texans. He had a solid career. Adrian Claiborne, solid career. Phil Taylor was one that I think injuries and size, I don't think he ever was able to hit. Danny Watkins was the unfortunate dud of that group, having gone to Baylor, playing guard for Eagles. That just never clicked. Anthony Costanzo was at 22, never made a Pro Bowl, but was an outstanding player for the Colts. This was a rock solid draft, a 2011 in that first round for sure. I mean, when it ended, it was like, whoa, man, there are going to be a lot of players in this draft if they can come to an agreement on, with this CBA. And of course they were able to, but even at the back end.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, don't ruin it. Cause like first round was amazing, but there's lots and lots of value, even undrafted, that's going to sneak in.
Well,
look at this draft.
Listen to the back end of this. You mentioned
no. Wait. We're going to bring it up. I promise it's coming. They're coming to our team.
Okay.
They're coming to the Texans.
Oh, okay.
That's the beauty of it. We're redrafting. Okay. So in the second round, the Texans picking high again, because they were picking 11th overall. They finished 6 and 10. So in the second round, they're at 42 overall.
Okay.
And they took a guy who was a really good player for them, Brooks Reed. Brooks Reed really worked out. Okay. And I love Brooks Reed.
But we can do better.
Yes. Okay. Brooks, no offense, dude. I love you. No offense.
We like Brooks, yeah.
But a guy who fell all the way to the third round and went 70th overall, we're going to take him here, John. We're adding one of the premier pass rushers of the last decade who's still going.
Yeah.
We're putting Justin Houston. You think of Justin Houston, J.J. Watt, they could play some games on defense, do some twists. So Justin Houston, OLB, outside linebacker.
Let's go a little further with this. You would have had J.J. Watt, Justin Houston, and Mario Williams
and Connor Barwin. And Connor Barwin.
It's interesting in the 2007 season, the 2008 Super Bowl, the first Giants Patriots, the helmet catch Tyree. One of the key things about that game was the fact that the Giants put 4, because they were doing so well on first and second down, they put 4 pass rushers, 4 defensive ends on the field a lot in that game. They put Osi Umenyiora, they put Strahan, and then they had one other pass rusher. The only defensive tackle type they had in there was Jay Alford, who was a rookie, and he didn't play all that much. So they would go with 4 defensive ends at times, and every one of them was getting to the quarterback. You could have absolutely done that with those 3, barring those 4, and put, JJ inside with maybe Mario inside, and then Barwin and Justin Houston on the outside, and you would have torn it up.
Don't forget, you're leaving out a Pro Bowler in 2011 who was already here, in Antonio Smith.
Ninja, yes.
That. I mean, that's
he would have gone
nasty
inside.
front.
He would have gone inside with J.J. Watt, and then you could have alternated with other guys. I mean, your pass rush would have been sick.
So look where you are. You have Justin Houston has 102 career sacks. He had 22 in 2014, the same year JJ was, player of the year, defensive player of the year. Yeah. But he had 10, 11, 22. He had 11 in 2019 with the Colts. Really good. I'll take that. And I think the Texans would take that. I think Wade Phillips would know what to do with that lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I would think so.
In the second round, the Texans made a move because they had to get better at corner. They had to get better in the secondary. So Rick Smith, you can understand this move. He really liked Brandon Harris at the time, a corner out of Miami. It just didn't wind up working out for Brandon. Didn't do too much here with Houston or really in the NFL. But they had traded their third and their fifth in that draft to New England for New England's second round pick. And they took Brandon Harris at 60. So we're just going to let that lie. We're not going to take anybody at 60. We're going to keep our third rounder. All right.
Okay. We're not making a trade.
No trade. Okay. No trade, sir. Right. So with that third rounder at 73, the Patriots took Stephen Ridley. And then the next choice was theirs as well. And they took Ryan Mallett. But a few choices after that was a USC defensive tackle who did a lot of things very, very well in Tennessee. Do you want to go there, or do you want to take the 99th pick, which went to the Seahawks and was a linebacker, because you don't have a fourth round pick? And do you want KJ Wright? You want Casey and you want to just really stack that D line, or do you want a linebacker?
Okay. So so after drafting Watt and drafting Justin Houston, you add him to Mario Williams, Antonio Smith up front. At linebacker, you had Cushing, correct?
And Ryans, who you traded the next year.
Right. You trade the next year. So my inclination has been, and always, and you know how I feel, you've got to be strong on your line. So my inclination would be that Jarrell Casey would be the way to go.
Because Mario's leaving in free agency.
Right.
Year.
Right. You've got, I think, in outside guys with Barwin, with Justin Houston. I think you would have been okay. I think inside, you can always playmakers inside. Now, you would have had a little bit of a battle for the number 99. Maybe Casey wears 98, Watt wears 99. That would have been a really, and it also, I think, makes for a pretty interesting domino effect down the way, that you go out and you have to get Vince Wilfork. Now, Casey is not Vince Wilfork.
No.
But
he's different. He's effective in his own way.
Maybe you spend money on something else as opposed to Vince, et cetera. I would lean defensive line or on the line. So I would lean Casey. But linebacker, knowing that D'Amico leaves, I know I've got to be strong there. And there were a couple of years in 11 and 12 where D'Amico was gone, in particular 12. And we're watching the Patriots just slice and dice Barrett Root out there, linebacker. Man, that's a 51-49 proposition to me. But I'm going to lean Jarrell Casey. Let's go Casey.
Let's do it. I'll do it, because it's like you said, you got guys leaving, and there, to those saying, "Oh, well, he's not a prototypical 3-4." Wade Phillips will figure something out. This guy, okay?
Who cares? Yeah. So he would have found out what to do with Watt and Casey and Ninja for sure. Yep. Oh my God, that interior was a wreck shop, dude.
Mm-hmm. Oh. So, like I mentioned, that fourth round pick that had been dealt already to Washington, before the draft. Like, I think it was a draft or two before. So you got to fast forward all the way to the fifth round, and you've got three of them because you had dealt that fifth rounder to the Patriots. So
right,
instead of just having two, you have three.
Yes.
What's so funny, man?
What the Patriots did with that pick in the fifth round.
Oh, yeah, they got Marcus Cannon.
They got Marcus Cannon. So that's why I was laughing, because thinking about who they ended up picking with that pick and wondering whether the Texans would have taken the penultimate Texan in Marcus Cannon.
Which is what we're going to do. We're going to take Marcus Cannon in the fifth. because
I love it.
We've got 3. Okay. You gotta bolster that line. You always got to keep feeding it. So we're going to take Marcus Cannon in the 5th.
Okay.
Now we still have another 5th.
Yep.
In that from Washington.
Yep.
The Texans used it on a safety in Shiloh Kao, who Shiloh Kao gets joked about around here. And I think part of it's just because of his name and his longevity. But Shiloh Kao, that he was actually a special teams captain, for a year. He was a solid player here and went on. He won a Super Bowl ring with Denver. But instead of Shiloh Kao, I'm going to reach up and I'm going to take a guy that had played wide receiver in college a lot and then late switched to corner. And then he interviewed with me at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And he has the most memorable Senior Bowl interview of all time for me because I was asking him questions. And one of my questions was, what are your interests outside of football? What would you be doing if you were not a football player? And he grabbed my microphone, addressed the camera and said, well, I'd like to be in communication. And he did it in a fun way. It wasn't like a hostile takeover, but I was like, this Richard Sherman guy I like this guy. I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah.
To steal a line that I've heard from my good friend, Robert Giovanetti in Lubbock.
Yeah.
So the Texans are going to get a corner because, hey, you need a cornerback. You still haven't taken one. Going to take this developmental guy named Richard Sherman out of Stanford with your 2nd pick in the 5th round. You like that? You agree with that, Johnny?
So in that 2011 offseason, keep in mind, this draft is happening and did happen before anything happened in free agency. Now, I don't think a 5th round cornerback would have kept Rick Smith from going out and getting both Jonathan Joseph at corner and Daniel Manning at safety. So what you would have ended up with, and this to me is the domino effect now, truly domino effect. I think that they would have gotten a look at Sherman and went, we like this guy. What about if we move Kareem Jackson to what is seemingly his natural position of safety?
Yep.
And put Kareem back at safety, Sherman and J-Joe on the outside. And now all of a sudden you're going, so now your secondary in 2011 or 2012 is J-Joe and Sherman at corner. You've got the 2 safeties of Kareem Jackson and Daniel Manning, in addition to Glover Quinn. I mean, it's wow. That might have been one of the better defenses of all time. We've done a nice job so far, Drew, of solidifying that defense, no doubt, especially after the year 2010. But yeah, getting Sherman in the 5th round is big.
Okay. So with that final pick of the 5th round that the Texans had, they went originally with TJ Yates.
Yes.
And that pick came from Indianapolis via Washington, or so it came from Washington, and it was originally the Colts pick. Now, there's some guys you could choose around that spot. Jeremy Curley, good wide receiver from TCU, could do some stuff on returns. He went a pick later. Shockey Brown, corner out of Texas. He was solid for the Ravens. Pernell McPhee, very, very good defensive lineman.
Pernell McPhee was very good.
Tyrod Taylor went in the 6th round, and you don't have a 6th rounder. I love Tyrod Taylor, but my appreciation for history and knowing what this team went through at quarterback, and just knowing TJ Yates, I can't go without I can't go the other way. I got to go with TJ Yates here. Are you cool with that? I mean, he's a folk hero. Houston Texans folk hero. I'm gonna stick with him. You cool?
I don't want TJ to be mad at me about anything, but I am going to whisper some sweet Jason Kelce nothings in your ear. Would that have interest? Would that have had interest for you with Jason Kelce from Cincinnati, the center? Not Travis, the tight end.
Right.
Jason, the center.
Certainly it interests me, but the Texans went and got Ben Jones and Brandon Brooks in the next draft and did just fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm gonna say I got to roll with TJ. We've already PO'd Brooks Reed. I can't PO too many more guys. This era.
I mean, if we are redrafting mercenaries, it's got to be under consideration. That's all I'm saying.
I understand.
However,
I respect. However,
I will absolutely 1,000% go with you on TJ Yates. I'm cool with that. I mean, if you just think about the greatest moments the Texans ever had and how he bailed them out in 2011. I mean, who is that quarterback in 2011 that comes in and saves what looks like a great season that all of a sudden is going to turn to absolute what, and then he saves it. He saves it. And then in 15, he comes back and he has that Monday night win against the Bengals with a couple of brilliant throws. I mean, he's a folk hero. I am all down for Thomas John Yates, which I don't know if that's what it is or not, but let's go with it.
So you dealt your sixth rounder, but you got your seventh. And for that, you used it on a really good player for you, Derek Newton.
Yeah.
He was your starter from what, 12, 13, 14, 15. And he had one of the most gruesome injuries, most unfortunate injuries of all time. Basically, both of his knees exploded in Denver.
Yep, exactly.
And would you like to keep him and stay there? Or there was a guy that went undrafted that played really good wide receiver, and his name is Doug Baldwin.
I'm sticking with Derek Newton.
Cool. All right. I'm cool with that.
I'm sticking with Newton because we still have one more 7th round pick, do we not?
The final pick of the draft.
At that point, I wouldn't mind going with Doug Baldwin.
Well, I would rather than Doug Baldwin. I would rather go with Chris Harris Jr. and get a slot corner.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
The undrafted players, Doug Baldwin, Chris Harris Jr. Good grief.
Dan Bailey, the kicker, pretty good.
Yeah. And then there was a fullback, which fullback was not for the Texans at that point because Vontae Leach was that guy, but Patrick DeMarco carved out a really nice career for himself. So I like the way you're thinking. I want to keep Derek Newton. I just think effective, productive, offensive linemen in the 7th round do not grow on trees.
No.
So I want Derek Newton with us for the amount of time. I mean, I think unfortunately his career seemingly ended with that injury, but what he was able to give us for 5.5 years. I just remember the game in 2014 against the Ravens. I think we all remember that game Case Keenum came out of the near blind and threw it to Andre Johnson the first couple times down the field. I mean, it was an amazing game.
But he needed time to throw it.
One thing I remember about that game was the fact that Brandon Brooks got hurt. And I remember Derek Newton, they called him over to the sideline, and they're like, okay, here's how we're going to do this. And I think they ended up putting Tyson Clabo at tackle, if I remember. And then they moved Derek Newton into guard. The very first play was an outside zone, and Derek Newton put a linebacker on his wallet. And I just was like, wow. And he ended up having a pretty decent game at guard. And it was one of those things where, I'd known the NFL, hey, it's next man up. I get all that. But seeing that up close and realizing, man, this thing really is next man up. It is. You got to go in and be expected to play and be expected to play well. So I would go with Derek Newton. Now, I will throw one other option at you because it's not on the offensive line, but it's on the defensive line. And I bring up this guy because he's always been a thorn in the side of the Texans. I feel like this guy gets no respect. I feel like this guy is one of the more underrated guys in the league.
Hit me.
It's Lawrence Guy.
Yeah, I saw him and thought about it, but we'd gone so heavy on the D-line earlier in the draft. And I respect that, but if you get the no-fly zone going with Harris.
I still think Newton is the right pick on the offensive line.
Yeah.
With all you've done on the defensive line, even though I love Lawrence Guy and thinking I could get him at pick 233, or in that case, the Texans were picking at 212, I think it was, 214. To get a Derek Newton or a Lawrence Guy at that particular spot in the draft, my God, I'll take it. But I'm with you. I just wanted to throw it out there.
I like it.
See if you would take the bait a little bit. We could discuss. I think Lawrence Guy is one of the more underrated players in this league, and has been a tremendous interior player for the Patriots, even though he's drafted by the Packers.
All right, so let's recap. This is what the Texans go with in 2011 in our new redraft. And we should have put this – I failed here. Should have put the caveat out there. It was a great draft, no matter which way you slice it. But in every single GM who has ever been a GM, you could do this exercise on and repick and get the right one. So this is not a shot at Rick Smith at all. He did a great job here. Think about it. Like all 32 GMs back in, 31 GMs back in 2000 passed at least 4, 5, 6 times on Tom Brady. So we're throwing that out there. This is just a fun little exercise. But
of course,
in this new redraft, the Texans have J.J. Watt. That's the same pick. But in the second round, they go with Justin Houston, and they don't trade that second rounder, or they don't trade up for a second rounder. They keep their third. They get Jarrell Casey, a Tennessee Titan legend. So you have bolstered that defensive front. Now, no fourth rounder because that had been traded to the Redskins to Washington. And the fifth round, they get Marcus Cannon, offensive lineman, longtime starter, Texas guy.
Yep.
They had another fifth rounder, and they get Richard Sherman, a defensive player of the year, one of the best corners going for the last decade. We stick with TJ Yates, a quarterback, and hopefully you don't have to use him as much, but if you do, he's there. He can ride to the rescue. You got Derek Newton as your first seventh rounder, and Mr. Irrelevant would definitely not be irrelevant for the Houston Texans or any defense for that matter. Chris Harris Jr., one of the best slot corners of all time. I'll take that over a draft that was Watt, Brooks Reed, Brandon Harris, Rashad Carmichael, Shiloh Kao, TJ Yates, Derek Newton, and the original Mr. Irrelevant, Cheta Ozuwu from Rice. Those are good guys, but I think our draft will work better, John.
Okay, I got two things. First of all, the Texans 2011 draft is thought to be one of the Texans' greatest of all time. I mean, between Watt, TJ, Derek Newton, what you're able to get at, and Brooks Reed, obviously, the first 4 years.
He was solid, very solid. Yeah.
I think the middle round misses, like you said, you got something out of Shiloh Kao, but you really got nothing out of Brandon Harris and Rock Carmichael. And I think those are two that really, because you just needed so much help at that position. But here's the second thought. In 2012, obviously things weren't at the end of the year, they were going in a particular direction because Matt Schaub was starting to show a little bit of wear and tear. However, in that playoff game, in particular at New England, Tom Brady goes to work. Tom Brady would have been facing a defense that featured Justin Houston, J.J. Watt, Jarrell Casey, Antonio Smith, and Connor Barwin was on the 12. Connor Barwin was still on his rookie deal. Linebackers and that's the question mark. Could you have found a different linebacker? But you've got Cushing in there, and if Cushing is healthy, you hope Cushing is healthy, because in 2012, that obviously was the year that he ended up getting hurt. But let's say it's a healthy Cushing, and let's say your secondary is Richard Sherman, Jonathan Joseph, Chris Harris Jr. at the nickel, Glover Quinn, Daniel Manning, and Kareem Jackson. I don't think that Brady goes to work the way that he did in that particular playoff game as an example. I don't think that happens.
And maybe you're not playing them there. Maybe you're at home.
Absolutely.
And maybe you're playing them around later or something,
Yeah, maybe so. So from that perspective, that secondary is just stupid.
Now, if there's no movement coaching wise, and we're still in the same situation next week, we're going to really shake things up, and we're going to do the 2012 redraft.
Ooh.
I don't think we've done that, have we?
I don't think we have.
I know we've done 03 and 10 and 07 and 05 or 6, maybe both. But I don't think we've done too many.
We've definitely done 06 because I think I forced us to take David Anderson, which we were okay with. But
of course,
yeah.
We're fans of David Anderson.
So we've done 2006. I don't know that we've done 2012. 2012 is going to be very interesting.
Earth-shaking. Not just interesting.
Very, very intriguing. What do we do with that first pick? You have to stick around and find out.
NFL altering, like this draft was for the Texans.
Yeah, totally.
John, I love doing this. I wouldn't do it with anybody else. This is so much fun. Hope you all enjoyed some of this. It's a what if. It's a fun thing. It doesn't, it's just one of those let's have some fun type of deals. So hope you're having fun and hope you enjoyed it. And we will talk to you again very, very soon on In the Lab. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.